Hello everyone, and welcome to another exciting oil painting video. I'm your humble host John. Let's get started. We have another 16 by 20 and we're going to use our palette knife again. I seem to be getting the most views out of palette knife videos, so I'm going to keep doing these until you tell me something else. Now, what we're going to do, one of the things I like about the palette knife, and I mentioned this before, I'm going to keep mentioning it, is you really can't get bogged down with details, okay? You basically get an idea, you put it down, and then you kind of go with it. And for a lot of people, that's a good thing. Some people it's not. Some want to be ultra hyper realistic and stuff like that. I've never been one of those people. Part of it is I have no desire to, but part of it is I'm just not wired that way, okay? Some of these people that do the hyperrealism, they are very patient people. They're extremely detail oriented, and I just am not equipped to do that. And to a degree, I envy them to be able to get that level of reality. Me, with my brush work, I have a certain amount of reality, not hyperrealism, maybe semi. I don't know if that's even a thing in art. With my knife, I try to just kind of let it go. I'm trying to figure the right words. I don't want to give you the wrong idea about saying, you know, I don't care what it looks like, because I do. I care what it looks like. What I don't care about is fussing with it too much. It's almost like a raw sketch in my mind when I'm doing a palette knife video, okay? I want to get the idea down, in this case with paint, so in color, and I want to kind of have that spontaneity that you get from a knife, okay? I'm not looking for anything special with brush work and everything. I'm just looking for spontaneity, and I'm looking for something that kind of conveys an attitude, maybe. I guess maybe that's the best way to put it. Now, one of the things you might be noticing here compared to what the other ones I've been doing, this one I'm going a little thinner, okay? And the reason is, like with a brush, when you go thinner, I always layer. You've seen me in brush and knife. I layer everything. That's one of the beauties of oil painting. But even with a knife, it's easier to layer when it's not on super thick paint. Okay, we end up with the thick paint. Today I'm going to try and get away from super thick and just go kind of medium thick. Give you an idea. You saw the one last week that was super thick. This week I want to try and do maybe half the degree of thickness. So we'll see how that works. Okay, so I've got my blue sky down. It's marbled a little bit. Now, with a brush, you would blend this, and you'd probably end up getting it to the point where it'd be a lot less marbled, and it'd be a light blue. With a knife, you can still blend it, but not the same way. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the knife, and we're just gonna, okay? So basically going on the edge, on the edge, on the edge, on the edge, not full, okay? And this is to, and we're lightly doing it just to blend. Okay, and I know you see these little mountain type things sticking out. That's not mountains. Just trying to get everything to be a little bit more, I don't want to say smoother, but a little thinner. And then once I get the different lines done, and I'll show you what I'm doing. Then you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. With a knife, you're never going to get it completely smooth. But I'm not looking for that. Part of using a knife is to have it all over the, well, not all over the place, but have that texture. Okay. And then the other thing is, when you're doing this, you want to wipe off the excess. Again, we're not going for really crazy thick on this painting. We want palette knife look, palette knife thick, but not crazy thick, okay? There's some people that have their stuff sticking out that far. And I have no idea how they control it. That's another type of talent that I'm not familiar with. So this is just going over it until I get the look I want. I may be fussing a little too much. You may fuss a little too much. I may fuss not enough. Just want to get, and I'm going very lightly. There we go. There we go. I keep, and the thing of it is, like I said, you keep wiping off. You know, boom, wipe off, boom, wipe off. This one was when I first started, and I got the real bulky stuff up. Okay, so nice and light. There we go. Now, we're going to put clouds in differently than we have been. Because we're a little less thickness than we used to be, or we have been on the last two, we're going to be able to pull these off a little bit more like traditional clouds to a degree. But in more, actually more accurately, we're going to put the clouds in similar to the way we do highlights for our mountains with a knife. Okay, so we're going to take the knife and we're going to take just a little bit of Payne's gray with it. I want these to be grayish, bluish clouds. Okay, and then we're going to slide lightly. Not completely flat, a little bit on edge, and we're gonna slide. Okay. This is how we do our highlights on our mountains. This is a lot less textured, but it's still textured. Okay, it still has a nice look to it. Now I'm not pressing hard, just like the mountains. You're barely touching. You're touching enough to move the paint, but not blend the paint underneath. Okay. Then this. There we go. Please step back. Yeah, see, I like the way that looks. Now, I prefer this to the real thick sticking out way. My own personal opinion. Everybody's a little different, so it really depends on you. But I wanted to show you with this one that you don't have to go crazy thick. You can be moderate thick paint with the knife, okay? Now, it's easier to do on a stretched canvas and or stretched linen than it is wood, only because the hardness of the wood, if you could scrub in to a canvas and still have paint covering all the pores of the canvas. If you do it that hard on wood, it's gonna go right down to the wood and it's gonna scrape it, and then you're just gonna see the lines to the wood. So you have to have a little bit more touch, and you can't go as thin with the wood as you can on a stretched fabric, like a canvas or a linen. Okay, so now let's just take a bunch of sap green. Now we're gonna do the same thing we did with the sky. And I'm gonna make probably a forest over here, some water, and maybe a distant mountain, I'm not sure. Like always, we're making this stuff up as we go. But I'm putting it on really ultra thick here. Don't worry, I'm not gonna keep it ultra thick. I'm gonna spread it out. So I'm gonna use this to cover a lot of space. And the reason you'll know that, I don't know if it'll show up on the video, but you can see here how you can see a little bit of the white behind it, and then here it's totally sap green. This is what we're gonna go for. But that's only gonna be the background part. We're gonna put a lot of trees in to cover that. We just want some color here. The best way to get color, is just cake it on and then go from there. Actually, I'm gonna try something here. I'm gonna go all the way down with this forest. See how this is going to turn out. Now when you get into these corners on the stretch canvas, so here's the deal. The stretch canvas is much easier to go thinner with the paint on a palette knife. However, you got the corners and you got the edges that are a pain in the neck. Where with a piece of wood, because it's so rigid, you don't have that. So it's really up to you what you think is the easiest and not. Okay, so we're gonna go like this. We want to cover just a little bit more than it is, but not ultra thick. Okay, so next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give it a tree line on the top. Right there, that looks like nothing. No, I'm just going to give it a tree line. And this is just foliage looking strokes, okay? And now this is completely flat. Okay, I'm touching the paint with the blade completely flat, lifting up and letting it do the work. And it's basically just giving me this foliage texture. And from there, we're gonna put in a couple of tree trunks, and then we're gonna put the highlight branches on top of it. It's a little thick there. It doesn't matter if there's no rhyme or reason look to it. This is all background stuff we're doing now. All background stuff. There we go. There we go. I know right now this looks like a whole lot of nothing. Trust me, it'll look much better in a little while. Okay. Now I'm wiping the blade off completely. So now I'm going to take a little bit of burnt umber. I'm going to mix it with some Van Dyke brown. Some Payne's Gray rather. So Payne's Gray and burnt umber. Make a bit of a mountain here. Again, I don't want to go ultra crazy thick, but it's a palette knife, so it's going to have a little bit of thickness to it. Okay. Not really sure where I'm going with this mountain. See, what I want to do, and what's in my head right now, other than I just stuck my finger in paint. There we go. Because I want these trees to be more forward than the mountains. That's my goal. So the mountains aren't going to go that far down. Now I'm going to go with some yellow ochre. with some sap green. And again, put the paint on however you want to do it. You can use whatever strokes you want. You can use as much as you want, as little as you want, whatever the case may be. There we go. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is, this one's going to take a little bit of touch, and take a little bit of getting used to, and even when you're used to it, it still has a difficult time getting it correctly once in a while. We're going to lift up here. Now with a brush it's simple, you just touch and little flick. With the knife it's a little more, excuse me, a little trickier. You got to go very light. And you use the tip of the brush, the tip of the knife. You know, the last 20% of the knife. But you want to get from the green you got on there up into the brown. There we go. And then smooth out here, and then up here. There we go. Trust me, if you have a little bit of reservations about using a knife, especially for a complete painting, you're not alone. I had a lot of them. I still am a little more comfortable with the brush, but one of the things I found out as an artist is, just because you're comfortable doesn't necessarily mean it's best for you. Getting out of your comfort zone in art is actually one of the best things. Making a bunch of, I'm not going to say garbage, but a bunch of bad looking art, trying new things, is much better than playing it safe. That's just my opinion, but I really believe that completely. Okay, so now we're going to go with a little bit of water. Now this is just blocking, okay? So I know, like I said, it looks bad, and it's going to look bad for a while. But I promise you it will look better before it's over. And we're going to give the illusion that this is going right through there. Okay, so basically the water is going to be coming from behind the trees here, going this way. So we're going to make this narrow and this thicker. This is French ultramarine I'm using, and yes, I'm going very thick, and then I'm going to spread it out thinner. And this is too thick, so I'm going to cover that with land. I just got to see the perspective as I'm doing it. Now I got too much paint on my knife, so I'm just going to wipe it off, and you can see. I mean, I didn't show you my knife just now, but you can see on here it's really thick. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay. So now we can spread it around. Gonna add a little bit of green and yellow ochre in here. And basically I'm just getting this really deep into the fabric. You can tell how hard I'm pushing. Or like I said, you can't do it like that with a piece of hardwood, like my gesso board from Ampersand that I love using so much. And the reason for this, that I'm doing this, when I hit it with white, which is going to be thicker, the green and the blue will show up. And the reason I'm putting so much green in is looking around it. It's got nothing but green all over the place. Excuse me. Okay, then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to have more sap green and yellow ochre. And then I'm going to get the land. Then once we have this covered, then we can figure out exactly what we want to do with everything else. Now, once I get the tree line here on the left, once I get that established, it'll make this whole composition will make a lot more sense. So please don't, turn off the video just because it looks like I got at the moment. It will, but it won't last. It won't last. And this is going to have a lot of foliage in itself. There's going to be a lot of foliage in here. There we go. Now you can already see the way this is going. It looks like the water is coming out of there, out of the left. So that's a good thing. My perspective is off, so I gotta adjust it a little bit. Perspective is a 4-letter word for a lot of beginners, but it is something that the more you paint, the more you'll get the hang of it. What I'm talking about here for perspective is basically the relationship of the elements to each other. This had too much of a pitch going down, so it didn't look right. So now it has a more realistic perspective, smaller to wider. And that's basically all I was getting at with that. And this doesn't look right because it's just too flat. So I'm going to have trees go up a little bit more. So, what are the cardinal rules in painting? There are none. You do whatever the hell you want. However, there's some rules of thumb that you should keep in mind. One of them is, with landscapes, you don't want to have too many straight lines, if any. Okay, you want to have a tree line bumpy. You want to have mountains a little bumpy. You want to have things look off center because it's nature. Nothing's really straight in nature. It's one of the reasons why it's so damn beautiful. It's a little of everything. Okay, now there's going to be a little bit of texture in here. I got to get this down. See now, lifting up again. And I'm just going to use a knife and I'm going to start tapping in stuff. Different color bushes, flowers, all kinds of neat stuff. So it's going to look really good. Okay, so now we have a lot less texture than we have had recently. And I like. Okay, so now I'm going to take the Bob Ross knife, they call it, I guess. I actually don't, but I love Bob Ross. I don't paint anything like him. And then you can do a little bit of highlights. There we go. And I'm just sliding it like we did the clouds. Okay, I'm not really concentrating in one area too much. I don't want to go too heavy. I want to basically put the paint down and just slide it a little bit. And that's going to give me my highlights. There we go. Just make sure I hit that edge correctly. There we go. Okay, so there we go. Now, clean that knife off. Excuse me. Now, what I want to do, I'm going to go with texture here. Way too thick. Way too thick. Now we're talking. There we go. Okay. So we're going to use the knife now. And we're going to go right into burnt umber. We're going to go touch. Now this is nothing yet, but you're going to do this a few times. Because this is going to be a big ass tree trunk. I'm not putting this thing straight. Don't want a straight line. So as I find out where my branches are going, you can see kind of shaving that out a little bit where it's too thick. Right back into the main branch, well, main trunk. Okay, so now we're going to make another one. We're going to put this one right here. I'll make this one nice and thick too. Now I am putting thicker paint on now. I'm making this one go on an angle a little bit. A little better. I apologize for my arm in the way. There we go. Sometimes with a knife you gotta use a different angle. That's Rafael Sanzio wanting to say hello to everybody. I guess he got tired of being ignored. Although he is the most spoiled bird in the history of birds. Okay, so now what we're going to do, put another one in the middle. This one's not going to go to the top. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to work on this. So the next thing we got to do is put a little bit of a highlight. We've got a nice brown there. Okay, it's the burnt umber, but you got to have a little bit of a highlight. So the highlight is going from left to right on the mountain, so you need to make it the same so it's consistent. So you take white and you hit that left edge. Straight white. You're going to have to do this a few times because this is so thick. Okay, now we'll do that to everything else. Basically, this is giving it the highlight. And you can tell that it doesn't stay white because it's mixing with the burnt umber, which is the whole idea. You don't have to go too high up, and you don't have to go in every one of them, because we're going to have a lot of foliage on this thing. We're going to, too much paint. We're going to have foliage everywhere. A couple of these big ones maybe. Right now, basically, I'm just going by my own sight on what I think looks the most realistic for this. Okay, it shows up a little whiter in the camera and the video than it actually is in person. So I hope that doesn't throw you off. I didn't want to make it too light like it shows on the video. You know, in person it's not. I'm not quite sure how to remedy that. Okay, now while I'm here, I'm going to take Payne's Gray and I'm going to put some background ones in here. But these are not going to have leaves and texture and stuff. These are just going to be distant. So they're not going to have much detail on it, and they're in Payne's Gray, so I'm not going to really, too much. There we go. A little bit more here. Okay. Excuse me. I think I'm going to work on this for a while before I hit this. I'm not exactly sure how I want to do those leaves. So, what I do want to do, I want a little bit of my cad yellow light hue mixed with some sap green. I don't want these bright, but I want these lighter. I'm just using the top of the knife. See how much of the knife I'm using? Only that top quarter. And again, you want different heights. You don't want everything straight across. Everything just straight across, just not appealing. A little thicker some places, a little thinner in others, doesn't matter. As long as it's not the same. Okay. Now I'm going to get the land texture in. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to have a little different. And we're going to go here, just like we did here, except we're going to use more yellow ochre with that same mixture we've used. Let's see if we put a little bit of red in there. Let's see how that's going to look. There we go. There we go. Now we're going to use a little bit more of it. If it goes in the water, it's not a big deal. Because the water still has to be done yet. Okay, I'll put a little bit more red, so we're going to show up a little bit more reds now. And these are a lot bigger. There we go. See how that looks. Okay, that looks like a nice pasture. Now, here's the thing. We used red over there in the midground, so you know good and darn well there's going to be red flowers here somewhere. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is take off the white I have on the palette because it's all mixed with everything else, and it's not a good white to do our water highlights. So I took that off. I'm just going to squirt some more out. Then we'll be able to do our water. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just cut this in. I'm going to take right to where that is. Right to the edge. Again, I'm just trying to get the paint down. Doesn't matter how you do it, just get it down, and then you can sculpt it, as they say. Okay. Clean off my brush, my knife, sorry. I've been painting with a brush for so many years. Sometimes it's old habits die hard. Okay, so. Take some more blue. There we go. Let me see how that looks. Okay, over here, just a hair straighter. This the only part where I condone a straight line is far into the riverbank. Okay, that's coming along good. So now what we're going to do, wipe off where the sap green was because I'm out of it and I just got an ugly mixture. Get a little bit more sap green out. Okay. Now I'm going to take our lemon yellow. Actually, no, it's not lemon yellow. It's cad yellow light. And it's a hue. Make a nice bright green. Gotta be a little bit brighter. Now, as you can notice, we're going a lot thicker now than we have been. This is the last part, though. This will not have anything on top of it. And then basically this is just where you think it'll work. I'm trying to make little umbrellas, as you can see. All of mine have this little canopy shape to them. Now, you can tell my yellow is being mixed with the brown and stuff. But I'm going to put some Payne's Gray in here too. And I'm going to leave these. I'm going to leave a lot of those stumps, these big trunks. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to clean my knife and I'm going to go into Payne's Gray straight, and I'm going to use that to douse just a bit. Now, I'm going to do some yellow ochre. I'm going to add to this green with the cad yellow in it already. And now I'm just going with colors. Okay, I'm just mixing colors. I'm having a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Just like there is in nature. And this I'm just going to go straight across with my yellow. Gotta have a little bit of red because that's what I had a lot of in the mid-ground. There we go. Now I'm just using this to highlight different areas, make them brighter. And then I'll do the same thing with some red. I want to get the actual ground done first. Right now I'm just putting different texture dabs in different places. There we go. Oh, that's a lot of color. Did not really realize as I was doing it to be that much color. That's kind of cool. Put these. There we go. And the other thing I'm going to do is I still don't like the foliage of the tree. It's still too yellow. So I'm just going to have my sap green that I've got a lot of stuff in. I'm just going to add my sap green to it. Might be. There we go. Just too yellow. There we go. Okay, I think we have a completed painting. This is a nice impressionistic look at what you can do with a palette knife. So the only thing I'm going to do here, we're not quite done yet. I apologize for that. Anybody that's stuck around this late, I apologize. I gotta get some darks in here. Gotta break these up a little bit. This is just Payne's gray I'm using. There we go. A little bit more over here. And get this done. There we go. Okay. For all of you that stuck around, thank you very much. For the ones you didn't, you missed a really nice painting. Maybe next time. So I hope everybody has a great rest of your weekend and work week. The next 2 weekends I have shows. One in Schaumburg, Illinois, and the other in Sycamore, Illinois. So I will do my best to get my painting videos out on those Mondays. So please just be patient. Hope everybody has
wonderful and safe week. See you next time.